Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me this morning are analysts, Republican Garrett Mason and Democrat Ken Altshuler. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Let's start with this. A former FBI informant has been charged for allegedly fabricating information regarding a multi-million-dollar bribery scheme involving President Joe Biden, his son Hunter, and a Ukrainian energy company. Prosecutors say Alexander Smirnov falsely claimed executives associated with Burisma paid Hunter and Joe Biden $5 million ahead of the 2016 election. Smirnov has not entered a plea, but Garrett, this is key to the Republican impeachment inquiry. Will this have any impact?
I mean, I'm not sure it's key. I mean, there's all kinds of other things, including canceled checks and bank records and other items that the impeachment inquiry was built on. So, I mean, obviously, you shouldn't lie to federal, to the FBI. He did not enter a plea, so we'll see what happens when the case shakes out. But, I mean, there's a lot more to the impeachment inquiry than just this.
Ken?
I disagree. This whole case was based upon this one informant who's now accused liar. You can't build your house on one witness who credibility means everything to you in court. And by the way, why they were doing this is crazy too. You don't go after a president by going after his son. No evidence that Joe Biden had any correlation to this at all. And this is going to fall apart. Just fall apart. Good for the Republicans. Bring it on, baby.
Garrett? You're smirking there.
I mean, I think it's pretty difficult to say that it's just this that a case was built on. I mean, it's not going just after the president's son. I mean, the president's son was using his father's influence. I mean, there's an entire laptop full of information with Hunter using the big guy as the way to get to peddle influence. So, I mean.
But what did Joe Biden know and do about this? What Hunter Biden did may have been completely inappropriate. What did Joe Biden do?
10% for the big guy, Ken.
Now prove that. Show me the beef.
I think they will.
Show me the beef.
I think they will.
As for former President Donald Trump, he's still facing a number of legal challenges. Appearing in court in New York this week for his civil fraud trial, he could face a criminal trial in New York after a judge denied his request to dismiss charges related to hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Meanwhile, there was a hearing in Atlanta this week over whether District Attorney Fani Willis should be removed from the Georgia election interference case against Trump because of her personal relationship with the special prosecutor on the case.
These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Now, Ken, will any of this matter to voters?
No, I don't think it'll matter to Trump supporters. It may matter to independents if convicted. The problem is we're in reverse order. The New York case is the weakest of the three cases. It should have been the last one that went to trial. The January 6th allegations are the most serious ones, in my opinion. Those are not on the horizon yet. And the Georgia thing was a complete fiasco. Why the prosecutor? I mean, look, I don't think she did anything wrong. I don't think legally wrong or it was a conflict. But the impropriety, the appearance of impropriety, that's what you want to avoid. And now the distraction's there. So now we're not looking at Trump, we're looking at the prosecutor. That's not how you want to start your case.
Garrett, a mess all around?
Oh no, Ken couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it was an absolute train wreck. I mean, you watched that hearing yesterday, and there was one that happened on Friday as well. But the district attorney has become the center of the case, which is like the last thing that you want. And some of her claims that she made, that she just has 6 months of cash stacked in her house, and that's how she paid for these trips and all these things to Napa Vineyards and all this stuff. I mean, it's laughable. It's not believable. So, I mean, when you're trying to convict a former president of the United States, you really have to have your ducks in a row. Ducks were all over the place on this one.
And by the way, when you have a prosecutor, a lawyer say, when you accuse of being a hostile witness, that doesn't mean you're hostile. That means you're an adverse party. You can be cross-examined. She didn't understand what that meant. She's a lawyer. Yeah. That's 101 law. Yeah. So very disappointing, very poor representation. It was dismal.
Yeah. Coming from the lawyer himself. All right, for the first time in 100 years, the House has impeached a sitting cabinet member. It was a close vote of 214 to 213, with House Republicans saying the secretary has failed to enforce immigration laws and border policy.
It's testified under oath that the border was secure, and everyone in America knows that it wasn't. And I think this is a good first step towards accountability.
He didn't commit treason. He didn't commit anything that the Constitution enumerates, high crimes and misdemeanors. So this is just, more chaos and a joke from Congress.
All right, next step, a Senate trial where Democrats obviously have the majority, Garrett. So it's unlikely that he'll actually lose his job. Why bother?
Well, I think it shows that he actually did commit a high crime and a misdemeanor. I consider letting 6 million unvetted people into this country with absolutely no enforcement on the border a very high crime and misdemeanor. 6 million people, that's the combination of about 15 states in this country, that have less than that amount of people in it. So, I mean, it's been an abject failure at the border. The president has had the authority all along to enforce these laws. The secretary did not enforce these laws, and I think we're going to see what happens out there. But this is what happens when you use impeachment as a battering ram, whoever the party is. This is what happened under Donald Trump. The Republicans are returning in kind, and it's unfortunate. I agree with Jared Golden. This is what happens when you start using impeachment as a way to prove a point. And this is going to go on forever, but I think that can was opened a long time ago.
Ken, Biden's calling this a petty political game. Do you agree?
Of course it is. I mean, first of all, what has he done unconstitutional? Nothing. He doesn't go on the border and open the door and let them in. And had the Republicans allowed the bipartisan legislation to go through, which they didn't because Donald Trump did not want that in Biden's pocket, this wouldn't be here. And by the way, when Obama issued executive orders, what did the Republicans say? How dare you exceed your executive authority? Biden can't do that. He'll get the same criticism. So this is all political. It'll go nowhere. It's stupid and it's a waste of time. But what else has Congress done lately?
Well, I agree with you there, but as far as executive orders and criticism, I mean, he's the president of the United States. He should be able to stand up to criticism, and with that, the Supreme Court upheld a lot of those Obama executive orders. So the president, after the failure of that bill, has gone out to say, well, I'm going to do it anyways. So he could have done it all along.
And don't get me wrong, he should.
He should.
And if I was him, I would issue an executive order closing the border for 30 days, 90 days. That'd be a great thing for him to do. And I agree. He's being too passive, and it's a mistake on his part.
Speaking of the current state of Congress, though, New York Democrat Tom Suozzi has won a special election for the House seat formerly held by George Santos. Suozzi defeated Republican Mazi Pilip in a contest to represent a district that includes part of Long Island and the New York City borough of Queens. Ken, the win already narrows a thin margin held by Republicans in the House. Good news for Democrats?
Great news, and the reason it's good news is because the two major issues in that election were immigration and abortion. And on both those things, he was attacked as the immigration policy of the Democrats and the abortion issue. The opponent was pro-life, and the other opponent was against the bipartisan bill, and he won. So if you're going to get any information from this, it's that immigration may not be the death knell for the Democrats, as we are worried about, and that abortion is still a very viable issue in the election.
Garrett, was this a given the Santos mess?
Well, I think so, and I think it shows two things. I think the first thing it shows is the absolute lack of Republicans to cover the six of their members. Did George Santos do some stuff wrong? Absolutely. Did Eric Swalwell have an affair with a Chinese spy and still was on the Intelligence Committee for 2 years? Absolutely. It's a complete double standard in Congress, and I have everyone to blame on the Republican side of the aisle and the leadership for this even happening. Second of all, it shows a complete lack of infrastructure on the Republican part. They have avoided and ignored absentee balloting for the better part of 20 years, and the infrastructure lack is showing right now. So unless Republicans get their act together, this is going to be repeated in the next election, no matter how bad Joe Biden is. So I think it's a serious wake-up call to Republicans.
And there seems to already be some traction on that absentee ballot front among Republicans, at least here in Maine. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. The Weekend Morning Report is back right after this. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me once again this morning, our analysts, Republican Garrett Mason and Democrat Ken Altshuler. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start with the latest development from the Independent Commission investigating the deadly Lewiston shootings. Maine State Police testified this week, sharing a lot of new information about the chaos around the response and the subsequent manhunt for the shooter. We also learned the assault weapon used was purchased from a small shop in the town of Poland in July, just days before the Army ordered the gunman to go to a psychiatric hospital in New York. Police say they feared for their safety, given how heavily armed he was.
That was my immediate thought, was this is an ambush of some nature.
That would be an unwinnable situation for a canine team to be tracking at night under white light.
And Ken, there was also some damning video released by New York State Police this week where the shooter essentially was heard in that body cam video saying he was capable of doing something. What does this all mean for police and the ongoing investigation?
I don't think the criticism of what happened after the shootings, I don't think that is legitimate criticism. But beforehand, you go back to the Army, and I'm glad the Army is going to be subpoenaed in here because their failures were huge. Absolutely. And the failure of the state police to follow up and see this person in face to face and to trust the family that they're taking care of it. There was a complete collapse of responsibility. We have a yellow flag law, I'd like a red flag law, but even the yellow flag law could have worked had they done it correctly. So complete failure and tragic loss, and I really think it could have been avoided.
Garrett?
I agree completely with Ken. This was an abject failure on so many parts. I am glad the Army is going to come in and testify. I think that's very important. I also think that when you tell a family member, you just heard these officers saying this was a huge deal, and you basically say to the family, you deal with it. That's not the yellow flag law. The yellow flag law is being used daily now. There is a way to implement it, and it wasn't followed. So I agree with Ken. Huge failures all around. Follow the laws on the books.
Where does the accountability piece come in here?
Well, there's not much you can do about it except say that they didn't follow it. Who are you going to, will there be lawsuits? Theoretically, you're going to sue the Army? I don't think so. You're going to sue the Maine State Police? No. The problem is we need to learn from this. And Garrett's absolutely right. The yellow flag law has been followed since this and has been implemented more than 20 times. That means it can work. Abject failure is the exact description for this. We need to learn from it. Probably there's no accountability at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people at home watching are watching what's playing out in this commission and waiting for kind of the end of their work, saying, will anything happen? Will legislation come about? Is it possible to hold state police or the Army accountable?
Well, I mean, I don't know, like Ken said, it's the Army, so I think it might be tough to do that. But, I think one thing we are learning, and I know there's differing opinions on gun control and how to get there and how to make sure that people are protected. But I think one thing that we learned is the legislature did have some foresight and came together and created this yellow flag law with a lot of agreement. And if it were followed, it could have been stopped.
Agreed.
Governor Mills' supplemental budget is out and includes funding directly in response to the Lewiston shootings. More than $900,000 would go toward creating a crisis receiving center in Lewiston. Money would also go towards new funding for more mental health resources within the Maine CDC, specifically in the hopes of reducing suicides and homicides. Another portion of the proposal is around gun safety, with $200,000 to promote Maine's Safe Homes program, which essentially incentivizes people to store their firearms safely. Will there be bipartisan support here, Garrett?
I think at the end of the day, we'll probably get there. The budget most of the time ends up being bipartisan, so there'll be some give and take. I know Republican leaders were reviewing everything over the week. There's some things to not like as well. I mean, there's 2 brand new government departments nestled in there, which is going to cause some consternation for Republicans. And it's a lot of money. I mean, the Republicans have been talking about, this is showing an overtaxation. So, I mean, should we send a lot of this back to the taxpayer? But I think there's a lot to like, too. I mean, like the mental health services, especially starting in Lewiston, I think that's great. I think there is some things to be proud of, but, that's what supplemental budgets are for. You try to get to 2/3, and I hope that Democrats will stick to getting a bipartisan 2/3 vote.
Ken?
I agree with Garrett. I think that there'll be some wrangling, but I think at the end of the day, the proposals are popular. Mental health, gun safety, human safety, I think those are all popular. I think it'll be tough for anybody to resist it. There'll be some wrangling, but they'll agree to it in the end.
All right, switching gears to the lobster regulations in Wales. Federal officials say a rope that was found entangled around the tail of a right whale that died near Martha's Vineyard is consistent with fishing gear used here in Maine. That whale was found dead in January. Members of Maine's lobster industry say they want to be involved in discussions while the whale's death is still under investigation.
All fishermen are very, very anxious. They're worried. They're concerned. And I think on top of that, because of the past few years of uncertainty with whale regulations, we are seeing some people leave the fishery.
The Maine Department of Marine Resources even says it is likely that this is in fact Maine fishing gear. What does this mean in the fight for federal regulations, Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the environmentalist groups finally got what they wanted, proof that a right whale died from Maine fishing line. They've been trying to pin this on Maine fishermen for years and years and years. Maine fishermen have tried to comply and be reasonable with some of their, with some of the new regulations coming out. But this is something that Maine fishermen are going to now have to deal with. Bottom line is it's very difficult. I mean, you have a huge, Maine is known for lobster. Have that huge industry be under attack for a right whale death incident is going to cause some problems. So it'll be interesting to watch for sure.
And Ken, I've been out there. I've talked to a lot of lobster fishermen about this issue. Many of them fearing for the overall future of the industry, but a lot of them have denied that their gear was involved at all, and this is kind of that smoking gun.
Yeah, gear has been involved in 80% of all the whale killings, and we can't pin it on. And when I say we, I'm not investigating this, but just Maine lobster fishermen. But logic dictates it is. And look, if we were anywhere but Maine, we would accuse us of being protectionism, okay? Because we were protecting our own economy and our own industry, and I understand that. And I think the government should step up, the federal government, and fund lobstermen in replacing what they need to replace to make it safer for whales. There are 70 female right whales in existence today. 70. 350 total. This is an extinct creature. Now you got to decide what's more important, the lobster industry or the right whale. Many people say lobster industry. If we weren't in Maine, we wouldn't be saying that.
So let's wrap things up with winners, losers. Garrett, we'll start with you.
Kansas City Chiefs, big winners of the week.
You're killing me.
I know. Well, but I think the big loser is also Travis Kelce, because he tried to sing both Viva Las Vegas and I Got Friends in Low Places. He did not pick up any singing tips from Taylor Swift.
Both great songs, but yeah.
But not for him.
No. Ken.
So my winner of the week is Caitlin Clark. She's the Iowa basketball player who just set an all-time record for college points. She's going to beat Pistol Pete Maravich, who has the record for men. This is the women's record she beat. She's going to beat the male, and it's a huge accomplishment. And she beat Michigan, my alma mater, in doing it. But she's an incredible, phenomenal basketball player, and she's clearly the winner of the week. My loser of the week, I hate to say it, is Fani Willis. I think she was horrendous, and she did a disservice to her office and to the case, and she should have known better. Don't get involved with somebody that you just appointed to handle a case. That just looks terrible.
Ken, Garrett, thanks so much. That's going to do it for this week's Political Brew. If you missed the first half, you can watch anytime on New CENTER Maine Plus. The Morning Report is back right after this.